This is lesson 46 of A Course in Miracles. God is the love in which I forgive. God is the love in which I forgive. Yesterday's lesson 43, was God is the mind with which I think, and then before that, God is the light in which I see. So God is the light in which I see, God is the mind with which I think, and now God is the love in which I forgive. This is a very lovely and deep lesson. Let's read it. We're going to read paragraph by paragraph. We're going to talk about it paragraph by paragraph. Here we go. Paragraph 1. God does not forgive because he has never condemned. And there must be condemnation before forgiveness is necessary. Forgiveness is the great need of this world, but that is because it is a world of illusions. Those who forgive are thus releasing themselves from illusions, while those who withhold with forgiveness are binding themselves to them. As you condemn only yourself, so do you forgive only yourself. Paragraph 2. Yet although God does not forgive, his love is nevertheless the basis of forgiveness. Fear condemns and love forgives. Forgiveness thus undoes what fear has produced, returning the mind to the awareness of God. For this reason, forgiveness can truly be called salvation. It is the means by which illusions disappear. Paragraph 3. Today's exercises require at least 3 full 5-minute practice periods and as many shorter ones as possible. Begin the longer practice periods by repeating today's idea to yourself as usual. Close your eyes as you do so and spend a minute or two in searching your mind for those whom you have not forgiven. It does not matter, quote, how much, unquote, you have not forgiven them. You have forgiven them entirely or not at all. Paragraph 4. If you are doing the exercises well, you should have no difficulty in finding a number of people you have not forgiven. It is a safe rule that anyone you do not like is a suitable subject. Mention each one by name and say, God is the love in which I forgive you, and then you put the name of that person. You say the name in your mind or out loud. Paragraph 5. The purpose of the first phase of today's practice periods is to put you in a position to forgive yourself. After you have applied the idea to all those who have come to mind, tell yourself, God is the love in which I forgive myself. Then devote the remainder of the practice period to adding related ideas, such as, God is the love with which I love myself. God is the love in which I am blessed. Paragraph 6. The form of the application may vary considerably, but the central idea should not be lost sight of. You might say, for example, I cannot be guilty because I am a son of God. I have already been forgiven. No fear is possible in a mind beloved of God. There is no need to attack because love has forgiven me. The practice period should end, however, with a repetition of today's idea as originally stated. Paragraph 7. The shorter practice periods may consist either of a repetition of the idea for today in the original or in a related form, as you prefer. Be sure, however, to make more specific applications if they are needed. They will be needed at any time during the day when you become aware of any kind of negative reaction to anyone, present or not. In that event, tell him silently, God is the love in which I forgive you. You could take any one of these lessons and go all the way. You know, it's just the same idea as if you take Jesus's opening statement in the Course, in the introduction, where he says, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. If you understand that one statement, then you don't need the rest of the Course. And you could take any one of these lessons as well, because each lesson really it's a statement that stands alone, and it's also a microcosm or a hologram of the entire thing. It's just in a different form, right? Each lesson presents different ideas. In form, they're all different, but in content, they're really saying the same thing. So I think that's very important to keep in mind. Well, let's read this, and we'll tease out some of the nuances of what's being said here. Paragraph 1, God does not forgive because he has never condemned. This is one of the most important ideas of the entire course. God does not forgive. God has never condemned. God does not judge. That's a tough one, because we tend to think of God as a God of love, but also a God of justice. God metes out justice to the evildoers, right? The wrongdoers, the sinners, the ones who are unbelieving, or the ones who are, so far that they commit evil acts and evil deeds, and they and God will punish them, and God maybe will forgive them eventually, maybe, depending on whose theology you follow. Obviously, there is the idea of eternal damnation in traditional Christianity, and there's you'd have to really go into the finer points of theology, and there are theologians who debate these things all day long, and they and they really go deep into these subjects. I think most people have the idea that if you don't believe in Jesus, even if you're not Christian, you have a sense that Christianity teaches that if you don't believe in Jesus, or if you're an unrepentant sinner, then you will go to hell. You won't go to heaven. Whether hell is eternal or not, you're going to go there, right? Now, the Course is saying something quite radical in that regard. God never condemns at all. God does not forgive. God has never changed. And this is saying that because God has never changed, we have never changed. We have never done anything sinful or worthy of forgiveness. That's all a dream. That's all an illusion. Now, within the illusion, within the dream, it sure seems that way. It sure seems that we are sinful, that we have done some really wrong things, that we're unworthy of God, that we're very far from the truth, and we're basically repentant or unrepentant sinners. We are sinful by nature. That's what it seems like in the dream, in the illusion. This is saying outside of the illusion, though, the illusion is not real. Our true reality has never changed. Our true reality is still and has always been one with God. God has never changed. In God, there is only love. Only love means nothing else. So let's read on. God does not forgive because he is never condemned, and there must be condemnation before forgiveness is necessary. Okay, so if there's no condemnation, then there's no need for forgiveness. God has no need for forgiveness. Keep in mind here also that God is not a person, and that's where we get tripped up, and where we have problems is we tend to think of God as just as a being, a personality, sometimes a supreme personality who calls the shots and who pulls the strings. And this is saying that that's not what God is. God is more a condition or a state of perfect love, one lovelessness, you might say. Forgiveness is the great need of this world, but that is because it is a world of illusions. Okay, so in the world of illusion, like I was saying, forgiveness seems very necessary. And it is necessary if we want to return home. We have to prepare the way, so to speak, through the practice of forgiveness. All right, so I'll say more in a second. Those who forgive are thus releasing themselves from illusions, while those who withhold forgiveness are binding themselves to them. So forgiveness is an illusion, right? Jesus has said that. He doesn't say that here per se, but he says that elsewhere in the Course. Forgiveness is an illusion, but it's an illusion that will save you from other illusions, from all other illusions. It is the one illusion that will save you from all other illusions. Those who forgive are thus releasing themselves from illusions, while those who withhold forgiveness are binding themselves to them. As you condemn only yourself, so do you forgive only yourself. So this is a very, very important line, and one to take to heart. We never forgive anyone out there, right? No, there's no one out there to condemn or forgive. We're only always condemning ourselves. And there's really only one of us here anyway. That's the illusion, is that we think there's many, but there's only one. And if you don't see that, that's what this course is to help us to do, is to see the illusion of many and realize that the many are really, there's only one. There's only one of us here. There's only one that needs forgiveness, and that is the mind that thinks that it has been condemned, or it has condemned itself. And that is each one of us. So each one of us, it is up to us to forgive ourselves. But we can do that more easily when we forgive others, because when we forgive others, we realize that we ourselves are also forgiven. And that's part of the beauty and the methodology of the Course is to say, it's hard to just forgive yourself. It's easier when you can forgive someone else, and through forgiving someone else, you realize if you can let that go with that person, you can also let it go with yourself, and that you yourself are also forgiven. And you feel better, obviously, when you do forgive someone else. You automatically feel better because the weight has lifted. And you realize that you're holding on to whatever you held on to against that person was not worth it. So there's a lot to this. We could really go into all the nuances, but let's go on. Paragraph 2. Yet although God does not forgive, his love is nevertheless the basis of forgiveness. So God's love is the basis of forgiveness. Let's read on and then we'll talk about this. Fear condemns and love forgives. Forgiveness thus undoes what fear has produced, returning the mind to the awareness of God. For this reason, forgiveness can truly be called salvation. It is the means by which illusions disappear. God is only love. We are only love. In love, there's that great quote from the book Love Story, I believe by Eric Siegel or Segal. There was a movie, and the last line of the book is, love is never having to say you're sorry. Right? So in love, there's no forgiveness, there's no sorries, because there was never any condemnation, because love knows no condemnation. Love, how could love condemn anything? How can love judge anything? Right? Love can only be love, and love can only extend love, etc. So part of the problem is that then we say, well, how did the illusion come into being? If there was only love, if there is only love, where did the illusion come from? Now that's a question that is really unanswerable, and we could. Jesus does try to kind of point to an answer, which he calls the tiny man idea, but it's really not an answer that's going to satisfy everyone. But what we really need on this side of the veil is we need this idea of perfect unconditional love. And we need to think that there is someone or something that has that perfect unconditional love and that will accept us no matter what. So that's, even if this course is not true, and let's just entertain for a moment that it's not. That idea, we can't deny that we find solace in that idea, right? We find solace in the idea that there is a person or a being or a place of unconditional love where we are seen and understood and accepted absolutely for what we are, and whatever that is knows us more intimately than we ourselves even know ourselves. That whatever that is loves us with a greater love than we have ever loved ourselves. This is a very powerful idea. Again, even if it's not true, I would say it is because it can be experienced. This can be experienced in that regard. It is true. I think if you can have the experience of what it is, and not just words, then there's truth to it. But let's go on. So God does not condemn, God does not forgive, but the love of God somehow came into this world, and Jesus talks about it as through the Holy Spirit. The voice of God, or the voice for God, is the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is the reminder of the love of God, and that reminder helps us to get to that place of non-judgment and true forgiveness. So that love is the basis. So God's love is the basis for forgiveness. Also keep in mind that, that the idea that there really is nothing to forgive. Everything is perfect as it is. But from our perspective, there are many things that need forgiveness. This is a very important point, because we're ultimately we're going to the, you might say, the omega, the alpha omega point, where we get to the point where we realize everything is perfect. There's nothing that needs to be done. Everything is just as it needs to be, and no, the ego does not need to be in the picture at all. And the ego, not only the ego does not need to be in the picture, but the ego is nothing. The ego is non-existent. 3, today's exercises require at least 3 full 5-minute practice periods and as many shorter ones as possible. Begin the longer practice periods by repeating today's idea to yourself as usual. Close your eyes as you do so and spend a minute or two in searching your mind for those whom you have not forgiven. It does not matter, quote, how much you have not forgiven them. You have forgiven them entirely or not at all. This is a big point. I mentioned my parents. I came up against this idea with my parents. My parents would say, oh yeah, I forgave your father. My mom would say, or my dad would say, I forgave your mother. I forgave your mother long ago. I forgive it. I've let it go. I've forgiven them. But I was always like, well, have you really? I mean, I don't think you have. I mean, you say you have, but there's different levels of this, right? There's different levels of forgiveness, at least in this world, right? The ultimate level would be what Jesus is talking about. This is beyond all levels, and that's the point at which the world does not exist anymore, because there's this world is based on unforgiveness. This world is based on sin and guilt, fear. Without those things, the world would not exist. Right? So that would be the ultimate. But as long as you think you're still in the world, this forgiveness is still necessary, and there's still something to forgive. And you may get very close to complete forgiveness, but as long as you're still seeing a world that complete forgiveness, you don't have complete forgiveness yet. Now, you may have gotten very, very close. And the other thing to say here is that there will always be someone in your life that you don't like, or that you have trouble accepting, or you judge that person. And it may be one person, it may be several people. Jesus here is saying it's probably several people that you can think of. But sometimes it may be just one person that you really can't stand, and that you're really judging, and that you really... But that person, whoever that person is, really is just a scapegoat for your own lack of forgiveness for yourself, right? It's not about that person, it's about you condemning yourself. Paragraph 4, if you're doing the exercise as well, you should have no difficulty in finding a number of people you have not forgiven. It is a safe rule that anyone you do not like is a suitable subject. So this is another way of saying, if you're honest with yourself, you're going to find a lot of people that you could think of and offer forgiveness to. Mention each one by name and say, God is the love in which I forgive you, and then you say their name. Paragraph 5, the purpose of the first phase of today's practice periods is to put you in a position to forgive yourself. So this is all about forgiving yourself, right? After you have applied the idea to all those who have come to mind, tell yourself, God is the love in which I forgive myself. And why is that? As you condemn only yourself, so do you forgive only yourself. Then devote the remainder of the practice period to adding related ideas such as, God is the love with which I love myself. God is the love in which I am blessed, etc. Paragraph 6, the form of the application may vary considerably, but the central idea should not be lost sight of. You might say, for example, I cannot be guilty because I am a son of God. I have already been forgiven. No fear is possible in a mind beloved of God. There is no need to attack because love has forgiven me. And that's not even true. Again, love does not forgive because love does not condemn. But on this side of the veil, it's helpful to think that in that way, that love has forgiven me. Why? Because I think that I have sinned. I think that I am horrible. I'm unworthy. So I need to think in terms of that there is something outside of me that has forgiven me. But the reality is, the ultimate reality, is that love is love is love is love. Love means no condemnation, and thus no forgiveness, no world, no other, no separation. The sense of guilt and sin, etc., only comes from separation. So perfect love, perfect oneness, brooks no separation, and because there's no separation, there's no guilt, there's no sin, there's no forgiveness, condemnation or forgiveness or attack. The practice period should end, however, with a repetition of today's idea as originally stated. So you end with the original idea, God is the love in which I forgive. And then paragraph 7, the shorter practice periods may consist either of a repetition of the idea for today in the original or in a related form, as you prefer. So you can do either one. You could do the original form of it, or you can do a riff on it, some kind of riff on God is the perfect love, the perfect unconditional love in which I forgive, in which I live. Be sure, however, to make more specific applications if they are needed with people that you don't like. They will be needed at any time during the day when you become aware of any kind of negative reaction to anyone, present or not. In that event, tell him silently, God is the love in which I forgive you. All right, and this is so beautiful and so true. It's almost amazing that this course exists. It's almost an impossibility, you would say, that this course exists. It's helping many people. And I thank you for tuning in, listening, and so this, I mentioned this is like a quaternity of lessons. The fourth and final one is lesson 47, God is the strength in which I trust. So we're going to do tomorrow. We'll see you there. We'll see if it's still raining tomorrow. Is this going to be 40 days and 40 nights? We'll see. And then I had a way of signing off. I was going to use, but I forgot what it was. So I don't know. Rock on.